My name is Rami Hassan. I was born and raised in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, in a close-knit Muslim community that prized tradition, honor, and devotion. Our faith wasn't just something we practiced, it was who we were. My earliest memories were the melodic echoes of the adhan calling us to prayer, the scent of my mother's lamb stew on Eid, and my father's Qur'an recitations every night before bed. We were proud Muslims. I memorized surahs before I could even ride a bike. My father would look at me with pride whenever I stood in line with him for Friday prayers. I was expected to carry the torch, eventually become an imam, maybe teach the younger kids at the mosque. And I was devoted. Truly, I wasn't rebellious. I wasn't curious about other religions. In fact, I was warned not to be. Christianity, we were told, was corrupted. Jesus was a prophet, yes, but nothing more. To call him God was blasphemy. I believed it until one cold night in November changed everything. It started with a car crash. I was driving back from a late class at the university, tired, eyes heavy. A truck ran a red light. I don't remember the impact. I only remember the sound of shattering glass and the scream of twisting metal. Then silence. But I didn't wake up in a hospital. I found myself standing in a strange place. Not a dream. Not exactly. It was as though my soul had been lifted out of my body and placed somewhere entirely different, timeless, formless, endless. There was darkness at first, but not the kind that frightens. It was still almost peaceful. Then came the light. It didn't shine like the sun. It radiated. It knew me. It didn't need words. The moment appeared. I felt everything I had ever done, every prayer, every argument, every lie, every act of kindness. My life played before me in a flash. And I wept not with fear, but with understanding. And then I saw him. He didn't have to introduce himself. Somehow, I knew it was Jesus. He was clothed in white, brilliant and warm. But it wasn't his robe that drew me in, it was his eyes. They saw through me, past my traditions, past my fears, straight into my soul. You are loved, he said. Just those 3 words. I wanted to argue. I was a Muslim. I had never acknowledged him as more than a prophet. I didn't belong here. But he didn't condemn me. He embraced me not physically, but spiritually. I felt it. Waves of love, grace, and truth like I had never known. And then I was back, in my body, in a hospital bed, tubes down my throat, a nurse shouting for a doctor. In the hospital room, tubes and wires kept me tethered to the physical world. Yet my mind drifted between 2 realities, one that had always been my truth and another that had suddenly, irrevocably shattered my certainty. When I first opened my eyes, my family surrounded me, their faces etched with worry and relief. My mother clutched prayer beads tightly, murmuring verses from the Qur'an. My father, ever stoic, stood silently by the window, whispering prayers for my recovery. Seeing them filled me with a mixture of warmth and apprehension. How could I share what I'd experienced? Would they understand? Would they even believe me? Over the days that followed, I wrestled silently with the implications of my encounter with Jesus. I couldn't dismiss it as a mere hallucination. The clarity, the intensity, the pure presence, it was more real than anything I'd ever known. Yet it contradicted everything I'd been raised to believe. When my strength returned and I could finally speak, I approached the subject cautiously. My younger sister, Fatima, was the first person I confided in. She always had a gentle heart and an open mind. Fatima, I whispered one evening, something happened when I was gone, something I can't explain. Her large eyes filled with curiosity, concern mingling with anticipation. What is it, Rami? I saw Jesus, I said softly, almost afraid to hear the words aloud. And he wasn't just a prophet. Fatima's eyes widened, her expression shifting from surprise to something akin to fear. Rami, what do you mean? I think he's more. I whispered, voice trembling. He spoke to me. Fatima, he told me I'm loved. He showed me things about myself, about truth. She pulled back slightly, looking away. Are you sure it wasn't just a dream? No, I insisted gently but firmly. It wasn't a dream. It was real, Fatima. More real than me talking to you right now. She grew quiet, fiddling nervously with her hijab. You can't tell Mama and Baba. You know what they'll say. You know what this means. I did know. The unspoken fears hung heavily between us. Turning away from Islam wasn't just changing my beliefs, it meant risking rejection by my family, isolation from my community, and the shame of disappointing everyone who had poured their hearts into raising me to be a faithful Muslim. Days turned into weeks, and my silence became heavier. An invisible wall separated me from the people I loved most. I began reading secretly, diving into books I'd once avoided, Bibles, testimonies of converts, and stories of others who'd met Jesus in near-death experiences. Each account echoed parts of my own encounter, reinforcing the unsettling conviction growing within me. At the mosque, sermons no longer felt comforting. I sat among friends who prayed fervently, and yet my heart longed for that light I'd encountered. Every Friday prayer felt heavier than the last, my soul yearning for clarity and authenticity. But the more I sought truth, the more isolated I became. My friends noticed something was different. Conversations became strained, smiles forced. I felt their suspicion, their unspoken questions burning silently between us. The community, once my safe haven, was turning into a place of quiet judgment and subtle alienation. Finally, one afternoon, my father confronted me directly, sitting alone together at the kitchen table. He looked at me with piercing intensity. You've changed, Rami, he said, his voice firm yet tinged with sadness. Tell me, what is happening inside your heart? I hesitated, feeling the weight of generations bearing down upon my shoulders. Looking into his eyes, I saw not only my father, but an entire lineage of proud believers men who had never questioned their faith or their identity. Father, I finally whispered, my voice thick with emotion. I've seen things that have shaken me. I saw him. I saw Jesus. He stared back, silent, his face contorting with disbelief, grief, and eventually anger. Be careful, he warned, his voice low but trembling. You are walking a dangerous path, my son. My chest tightened, but I knew I couldn't turn back. My heart had found something undeniable, something beautiful, something real. The light I glimpsed was worth the risk, even if it meant losing everything I'd known. I realized then that the hardest part wasn't facing my family's rejection. It was accepting that my own identity, once so certain, was now completely uncertain. Yet somehow, in the quiet ache of that uncertainty, I felt hope. For the first time, I was free to discover who I truly was. The weeks following my admission to my father became a blur of tension, silent stares, and whispered judgments behind closed doors. My parents' pain was palpable, and though they never openly rejected me, their silence felt like abandonment. The community that had once embraced me as their own grew distant. People I'd known my entire life began crossing the street when they saw me approaching. Invitations ceased, and phone calls dwindled until only Fatima remained at my side. One Friday evening, after yet another strained dinner, my father approached me in the solitude of my bedroom. His eyes were red, reflecting nights spent wrestling with his own turmoil. Rami, he began quietly, his voice heavy with exhaustion. I have always taught you to seek truth, but this path you're choosing, it's not just about you. It's about our family, our honor, everything we've built. You understand what you're doing? I do, I replied, my voice shaking but clear. Believe me, Baba, I never wanted to hurt you or Mama, but I can't deny what I've experienced. He sighed deeply, eyes glistening with unshed tears. You are my son. Nothing changes that. But I cannot support this decision. If you choose this path, you choose it alone. His words pierced me deeply, a wound that felt impossible to heal. I wanted to reach out, embrace him, tell him I was still the same son he'd always known, but the gap between us had grown too wide. That night, lying awake, I felt utterly alone. But in that emptiness, a familiar presence enveloped me, a presence I'd first felt in the near-death encounter that had changed my life forever. Jesus. His peace was undeniable, his love overwhelming. In the quiet of my room, I spoke softly to him for the first time, not as a prophet, but as Lord. Jesus. I whispered into the darkness, tears streaming down my cheeks. I'm scared. I don't know how to do this alone. Almost immediately, a profound sense of warmth and comfort filled me. It was as if his hand rested gently on my shoulder, whispering reassurance. I wasn't alone. I would never be alone. In the weeks that followed, I cautiously sought out a local church. The first time I stepped inside, I felt the stares not hostile, but curious. People greeted me warmly but cautiously, sensing the weight I carried. Yet, as I listened to pastors speak about Jesus' unconditional love, I knew I had found a place that could nurture the seed of faith growing inside me. One Sunday morning after the service, an elderly woman named Eleanor approached me. Her soft blue eyes met mine with a compassion I had rarely felt since my experience. "You seem to carry a heavy burden, young man," she said gently. "Is there anything you'd like to share?" I hesitated briefly, then opened my heart to her, recounting my near-death experience, my family's rejection, and the uncertainty that haunted me. She listened without judgment, nodding with genuine empathy. When I finished, she placed her frail hand over mine. "Rami, the journey you're on is not easy. But remember, the cost of truth is always high, but the reward is freedom. And you're not alone. We're here for you." Her words ignited something within me, a realization that I wasn't abandoning my roots. I was growing deeper roots in something eternal. My community might reject me, but I had found a spiritual home that accepted me exactly as I was. Yet, as much as the church embraced me, my heart still ached for reconciliation with my family. Fatima visited often, torn between her own doubts and loyalty to our parents. During one of these visits, she revealed her own internal struggle. "I've been praying," she confessed one afternoon, tears slipping quietly down her cheeks. "But something feels missing. Your experience, it scares me, but I can't shake the feeling that there's more." Gently, I shared more of my encounter with Jesus, emphasizing his kindness, love, and mercy. I never pressured her to believe, only invited her to explore. Weeks later, she accompanied me to church, timid yet curious. Watching her eyes widen as the sermon resonated deeply within her filled me with quiet joy. In her, I saw a glimmer of hope that perhaps my journey might not end in loneliness, but in newfound understanding and connection. But even as hope blossomed in Fatima, my parents remained distant. Each night, I prayed fervently, pleading with God to soften their hearts, to help them understand. I began to realize the true meaning of sacrifice, not just leaving behind a set of beliefs, but enduring the painful process of transformation. My faith had cost me much, but with each day, I felt more alive, more connected to truth than ever before. And deep in my heart, I knew Jesus was worth it, no matter the cost. Months passed, each one marked by a deepening faith and a growing ache for reconciliation. My newfound Christian community nourished my spirit, but the ache of separation from my family remained an open wound. Fatima continued attending church services, quietly exploring her own relationship with Jesus, while cautiously balancing our parents' fragile hearts at home. One afternoon, after returning from Sunday service, I found my mother waiting anxiously by my apartment door. Her presence surprised me since my choice. She had rarely ventured to see me alone. "Rami," she said softly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "May I come in?" "Of course, Mama," I answered gently, my heart racing with uncertainty. Inside, she glanced around at my humble living space, noticing the Bible on my coffee table, pausing momentarily before looking up to meet my eyes. "I've missed you," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "You're my son, and no matter how different our paths have become, I can't bear losing you entirely." "Mama," I began carefully, taking her trembling hand in mine. I haven't left because of anger or rebellion. I've found something beautiful, something real. I don't understand it, she admitted quietly, tears finally escaping down her cheeks. All your father and I ever wanted was to protect you, to guide you. We thought we were showing you truth. I know, I replied, my voice thick with emotion. You did everything out of love. But Mama, when I met Jesus, he showed me a love I had never imagined, a love beyond religion, culture, or tradition. It changed me. She remained silent, listening intently, absorbing my words carefully. Then, with a deep breath, she asked, "What is it like? This Jesus you speak about, what does he feel like?" I paused, searching for words to capture the indescribable. It's warmth, Mama, acceptance without condition. It's knowing that even my mistakes don't define me, because I'm fully known and fully loved. She nodded slowly, contemplating deeply. Then she said softly, "I've watched Fatima change too. There's a peace in her now. She's become stronger, kinder, calmer. It frightens me, but it also intrigues me." I gently squeezed her hand, hope fluttering in my chest. "Mama, if you give it a chance, just an open heart, I believe you'll see the truth as clearly as I do." She shook her head gently, but her eyes softened. "I don't know, Rami, but perhaps I can learn to listen." That evening, after my mother left, I sank to my knees, overwhelmed by gratitude and hope. For months, I'd prayed for this moment, for a softening of hearts, for a chance to bridge the chasm my choices had created. Jesus had not only held me steady through loneliness and alienation, but he was quietly working miracles in my family's hearts. In the weeks that followed, I met my parents for dinner occasionally, conversations still careful, but less guarded. They asked cautious questions about my faith, listened to my experiences without immediate judgment, and even allowed me to pray openly before meals. The road remained challenging, and healing wasn't instantaneous, but we had begun building a bridge back toward each other. Then came Easter, the first one I'd celebrate openly as a follower of Jesus. The church invited families to attend, and despite my doubts, I extended an invitation to my parents. To my astonishment, they agreed, hesitantly yet courageously. That Sunday morning, as I sat in the pew with my family by my side, listening to hymns and sermons declaring Jesus' victory over death, a quiet peace enveloped us. I glanced toward my father, stoic yet listening carefully, and saw a tear slip silently down his cheek. After the service, he embraced me briefly, yet with immense meaning. "Rami, I still don't fully understand," he admitted quietly, "but I see that this faith of yours has made you stronger, better, and wiser. Maybe there's more truth out there than I've known." It wasn't full reconciliation, but it was a seed planted deep within his heart. For the first time since my encounter with Jesus, I felt genuine hope, not just for acceptance, but for true unity built on love rather than obligation. As I walked out of church that day with my family beside me, bathed in spring sunlight, I realized this journey wasn't merely about changing beliefs. It was about discovering the depth of God's love, breaking free from fear, and courageously choosing truth, even at great cost. My life had transformed profoundly since the night of that car crash, and although the pain of leaving my old life behind remained, the joy and freedom I found far outweighed every sacrifice. Standing in the gentle warmth, surrounded by newfound hope, I whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude. "Thank you, Jesus, for loving me enough to show me who you truly are." And in the quiet stillness, I felt his response. "You were never alone, and you never will be again."